Remember, we are on the 3 critical skills of facilitation. We've looked at awareness, self-awareness and specialization, attentive listening, and now let's go to facilitative speaking. So when we say facilitative speaking, it is an engaging way of speaking. It's a way of speaking that helps your audience follow you. And there are 7 major styles. You could add yours to it, but I'll talk about 7 major styles. The first one is use of questions. When you're facilitating, the use of questions is very important because this helps you to examine a particular issue of challenge, right? It helps you to examine challenges. It helps you examine different dimensions. It also helps your listener reflect. So you could ask, do you know the importance of a business model as an entrepreneur? Or have you ever had to reflect on your business model? Have you designed a business model before? Those are ways of helping the participants to follow you. Another thing about facilitative speaking is you suggest, you don't direct. You indicate. I remember one of the things one of my lecturers said. He said, Helen, you're too dogmatic. And I'm like, I'm not dogmatic. I'm telling you what I know. He said, no, you don't know everything. So you have to imply. You have to indicate. You have to show. So that's what I mean by suggest and not direct, So suggestions, which might, for example, when you say, I'm talking about business models. So one of the best business models to consider is the asset-light business model. This is a business model where you as an entrepreneur can decide to invest minimally in heavy assets. That way your overheads are low and you can devote your cash or your capital to generating revenue. Is this something you have looked at before? So remember I said one of the business models to consider. I didn't say the business model to consider. That would be like, no, if you do that, if you're in a physical class, you find people telling you, no, that's not the best model. I may have used it. So you really don't want that. So it's important to always let them know that, look, I'm bringing you principles and there are options. The reason why you suggest is that there are options. And this is one of the options. The body of knowledge is infinite. No matter how much you think you know about any subject matter, the body of knowledge is infinite. So it's very important for you not to be dogmatic. So that's why we say suggest, not direct when you are facilitating. Another way of facilitative speaking is reflection. Reflections which throw light on the content of what has been said. Here you get your audience to reflect on what you are talking about. You may just say, have you thought of why it takes time for businesses that are in maybe manufacturing or farming to earn revenue than those who are in services that have short transaction cycles? Have you thought about why their earnings are different and how they are different? Immediately, people begin to look at, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's true. Or, why do you think that businesses in tech find it easier to raise funding than businesses in manufacturing and farming or building, construction? And you'll be like, why? Well, maybe you get different answers. There are different answers to that. Some people say, no, from my experience. Somebody else may say, no, from what I've seen. So reflections are very good. Observation, One of the things you might notice is what is going inside you, the facilitator, what's going on in the audience, what's happening in the room. You need to observe and also be able to respond to happenings around you. So facilitative speaking includes observing what you are doing, how you are behaving, what the audience is doing, and then generally what's the group doing. So observations are very, very important. So you have to use observations both within and externally, and also even in the environment, what's happening around us. So sometimes you may be teaching a subject matter and you say, have you reflected on the economy of this country in recent times? Now that we are talking about business models, think about it. What have you noticed around us in this country in the past 6 months? So it shows that you know what is happening, you're encouraging them to know what is happening, and they may also begin to tell you what their experience has been based on their observations. So it's very important for you to use that. Another very good one is storytelling. I know a lot of people like this. Storytelling is usually good for validation. When you tell a story about a personal experience or something that actually happened, one thing I would say is please don't lie when you are telling stories. Do not lie. Do not lie. Another way of facilitative speaking is attributive interpretations. Here, what you're looking at is where some psychological meaning could be attributed to a piece of behavior in terms of motives, desires, emotions, or thoughts. So you could say here, when you're looking at the growth of an organization, you would notice that as an entrepreneur, you need to be empathetic. You need to consider your stakeholders and how they are affected by your actions. So here you are helping them understand that the things you do affect others and could be subject to other interpretations. And you're also helping them understand that, hey, there's a psychological dimension to the subject matter. So that's one of the ways that you can speak facilitatively, through attributive interpretations. Another way is through feedback. So when you give feedback and you also encourage your participants to give you feedback, it helps learning and facilitation. So there you do this through questions. Sometimes you could start a debate in class. Sometimes you can ask for their opinion. Sometimes you can suggest or give an idea or that, do you think it is better to take a loan or it's better to look for equity investors when you are trying to grow your business? Why? What has been your experience? Then people will give you their feedback. So it's you can say, well, from my experience as an entrepreneur, I've found that there are times when it's better to use equity to fund long-term or use loans to fund working capital with short transaction cycles. Here, you are showing that you actually are part of the session. You give them a feedback on what you have taught and also encourage them to give you a feedback on what you have shared or the sessions that you facilitated. So it's very important to have feedback coming in. So facilitative speaking is very, very interesting. Though I've talked about 7 steps, you may not use all of them. Sometimes you use 3, sometimes you use 4. And if it's a very long session, you might end up using all of them at one point or the other. So it's very important to remember the 3 critical skills of facilitation, which is self-awareness and specialization, attentive listening, and facilitative speaking. I will be back to start talking about what are the things you do to get started as a facilitator. See you.